How's it going, everybody? So I'm repping Ohio State today. It is Sunday. I should probably be wearing NFL gear. However, lucky for me, the Browns somehow managed to win on Thursday night against our arch rivals. So I don't have to waste any of my Sunday watching my team try and win, which is great. I've got all kinds of time. Going up later to see my son in his play, but I figured I'd talk about something a little bit new. Now, I've been on a kick lately where we were talking about, obviously for a long time, it was tactical things with regards to a resume. So what does that mean? Well, we're down kind of in the weeds. We're talking about how to structure experience bullets, how to order a resume, what kind of words to use, that sort of thing. So the tactical level, like little kind of line by line things. Did some content recently where I talked a little bit more about strategic level. So that was more about what kind of mindset do you need to have with regard to your resume? What's the kind of overall thrust? What ties everything together? So I talked about having like a selling perspective. I talked about focusing more on accomplishments, not activities. So those sorts of things that sort of tie everything together within the resume should factor into every section within the resume. It's not how you write the summary and the experience and the education. It's what's your mindset for the whole thing. So that was good. There was a topic that came up working with some clients this week that I really felt like was worthy of further study. It does tie into the strategic, but it's a topic all of its own. And that to me is having an aggressive mindset with your job search in general. So what we're talking about today, it kind of transcends the resume in and of itself. And we'll talk about some things outside of the resume that relate to the overall job search and your mindset, what it needs to be in order to be successful in that job search. The thing that I love to tell people, because, you know, sports guy, I've always been a bit of a sports nut, and it's a lot of it is about mindset. You see winning organizations like Ohio State have a winning mindset. All you SEC and Michigan haters, whatever, you can say whatever you like, but winning, successful organizations have a winning mindset. They're going to go out there and do what it takes to win. Losing, unsuccessful organizations, like my beloved Cleveland Browns, seem to go out there week in, week out and find a way to lose. Why? Because it's, after a while, it's kind of baked into your DNA. I told you that story to tell you this story. Even if you're not a sports fan, I think that you can probably agree. We've all seen organizations, business organizations, volunteer organizations, churches, whatever they are, clubs and things of that nature that are set up to succeed and those that are set up to fail. And the major difference between the two is mindset. So one of my favorite things to tell people whenever they're sort of hemming and hawing about, oh, how do I deal with this? How do I? My favorite thing is go on offense. Go on offense. Be the aggressor, not that you should be in some sort of aggressive mindset, especially if that's not appropriate. However, you want to be the initiator. We had a saying in the Marine Corps that was shape or be shaped. In other words, you're either the one initiating the action and defining the terms by which that action is going to be played out, or someone else is doing it for you, to you, against you. And all of those are negative things, in my opinion. So I'm going to talk today about a few different ways. I think it's 5. I'm looking at my notes here. I think it's 5. 5 different ways to go on offense. Be aggressive. I won't do the cheer. Spare you that. But be the initiator of the action. Too many people out there have this mindset that I've got my degree, I've got my skill stack, I've done my projects, I have my portfolio website, and now I'm going to sit back and just wait for the world to beat a path to my door. It does not work that way. If it did once, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of industries where when they were in their growth phase and they were just booming, you know, the .com boom, you could just set up a website so you were selling anything. Somebody was going to invest in you. You were going to get money somehow. Now, it all went poof, as we all know, a couple of times actually. But every industry probably goes through that, where all you need to do is say, I'm in this, or I do this, or I have degree X. Suddenly everybody's like, it's not that way anymore in tech, in data. If anybody knows of an industry that's currently like that, not even AI. I mean, we already kind of went way past that. Cannabis, way past that. So if anybody knows of an industry that's still doing that, let me know. But the thing is, in any industry that is not just booming so quickly that anyone involved is going to make money, you've got to do the work. You've got to put in, and you've got to lean forward and be the one initiating. So let's talk about a couple of ways to do that. Well, I'm recording in my garage, but the sounds of the world go by you. Okay, so number one thing I want to talk about is networking. Big shocker, right? Everybody that knows me knows I love networking. I want you in networking to be the aggressor. And that sounds bad, I know, especially certain cultures. I've dealt with a lot of Indian people, and they say, hey, aggressive is not a word that you want to use, especially the women. Got it. And I've adapted myself to that at times, but aggressive is a good thing. I firmly believe that. I think we need to put that out there. That just means you're the one initiating the action. You are taking action, you are going forward, and you need to do that with your network. One thing that I've noticed lately is, I kind of tongue-in-cheek call myself an influencer and sort of laugh about it. Because that was never my intention, and I still don't consider myself that. I still think that I'm a networker. I'm a person that talks to people. I don't just put content out there and say, everybody, appreciate me. But what I have noticed is lately, the vast majority of the connection requests I get come with no message. I know that that's part of, LinkedIn kind of put a cap on messages a while back for the free tier. I get it. Messages cost money sometimes now. I get it. I would venture to say the vast majority of people on LinkedIn are not using up the free messages that they get. They're just kind of defaulting to no message connections because it's easier. Don't do that. Majority of the connection requests I get come with no message. If they come with no message, I generally will either, if they look like super creepers or they don't have a profile picture or something like that that creeps me out, I will immediately decline. The rest of them just kind of go in a bin, and then I wait. The people that send me a message, I will read the message immediately. If that message is not obviously generated by ChatGPT, if that message addresses me personally, then I accept their connection request immediately. Unless they have something in their portfolio that I find personally offensive, you're in some business that I think is unethical, you have something in your headline that indicates to me you're going to pitch me some product right off the bat, I got a pretty good spidey sense for that. But for the most part, regular people just send me a message saying, hey, Al, I'd love to connect with you because I'm interested in this and I see you've done this. And, so that's an easy sell. If you're speaking to me like a person, if you're sending me an impersonal connection request, cool, you go in the bin with the rest. And I probably answer those about once every 2 or 3 weeks when it gets up to, 50 or 75 in the buffer. Here's the point that I want to make. People have gone back and forth on this. I've argued with actual, networkers on this that no, the no message networking request is more effective. It's absolutely not. And if you want to get into the stats on that, I will blow you out of the water because I've gone rounds with people before and I've never lost this argument. You haven't looked at the numbers properly. You've taken some study and said, look, no, dig into it. What you need to do is initiate your connections with personal messages. If you need to, for the time being of your job search, get the free month of LinkedIn Premium to get a bunch of messages and get a bunch of connections out there. If you need to just be judicious about using your 5 per month, I don't know what it costs to buy more. That may be a worthwhile investment for you. But the people that are actually going to move you forward, those connections that matter to you, you need to send those out with personal connection requests. You need to take the time to and budget time to network every day. You need to get out there and you need to find 10 or 15 people every day that you feel like can move you forward. They're in the industry you want to be in. They're either in hiring or they're kind of at the level immediately above the level where you want to work. Go find those people and connect with them with a personal message. However you got to do that, you can find their email address and cold email them. That doesn't cost you anything. But you need to go on offense with your networking, and the way to do that is not necessarily, now I love creating content. We'll talk about that later. The way to build a network is one-on-one connections, and the way to build productive one-on-one connections is by being personal with that contact. The other thing that I will tell you is the best LinkedIn connection is someone that's actually active on LinkedIn. I don't care how many people you find that are at your ideal company or in your ideal industry or meet some sort of criteria. If they're not active on LinkedIn, they are a useless connection to you on LinkedIn because they're not going to check their account for 6 months, and your request is just going to sit there gumming up your account and slowing down your reach, which is kind of an inside baseball thing. But yeah, go find people that match the criterion of people that you want to network with. Send them a personal connection request after you make sure that they are actually active on LinkedIn. Go check their content. Do they put out content? Go check their responses. Do they respond to other people? Those are the people you want to connect with. Budget your time every day to network if you're searching for a job, and make sure you're networking with productive people that are going to move you forward on a personal level. Anything short of that, you're either just being lazy, or you're being a little bit cheap, or you're just reducing your chances, because all you need is one productive connection. You don't know which one that's going to be. Most people's response to that is, let me get hundreds or thousands of these and up my chances of getting a productive one. That's the wrong answer, in my opinion. The right answer is, let's optimize the possibility that each one of these connections is going to be productive. And then if I get 10 connections, it's far more likely that one out of those 10 is going to be productive. If you go for 1,000 connections with a no message request, there's a much lower percentage chance that any of those are going to be productive. Okay, so number one, to sum up, we need to be aggressive. We need to initiate the action with our networking and optimize that process. Number two is one that came up fairly recently. The second instance where I want you to go on offense, in general, what I want you to do is address your perceived weaknesses. Specifically under this point, the first thing that you need to do is directly address date gaps in your resume. Now, defining what is a date gap can be a bit tricky. Generally, it's anything within the last few years that is 6 months or more. Now, could you get asked about a 4-month date gap? Absolutely. Might they not ask you about a year-long date gap? That's also possible. However, you need to be aggressive and get out in front of these date gaps, these perceived weaknesses in your resume, because whether they ask you about it or not in the interview, they are thinking about it. The hiring manager sees that date gap and is wondering why. If you don't tell them why right off the bat, they're left to make assumptions. Well, what does that mean? If you submit 100 resumes and you have a year-long date gap that was 2 years ago in your professional history and there's nothing on the resume to address it, think about how many people are reading that resume and going, I wonder why that date gap's there. Trash. That happens. Trust me, it happens. You'll be lucky, or maybe not lucky, maybe that everything else in your resume is so overwhelmingly awesome that they're still going to call you in, and then maybe they'll ask you about the date gap, or maybe they'll just make assumptions about it. But either way, you haven't given them the chance. You haven't controlled that narrative and gone forward and said, here's why I didn't have paid employment for a year. I was a stay-at-home mother. We were relocating. I was dealing with visa problems. It can be a sticky subject, so I don't know if you'd be as upfront about that one. We'll talk about that separately sometime. Illness in the family. Can be a bit delicate talking about that, and that may be a sensitivity. Maybe you don't want to talk about that. However, something's got to be there. And here's what the consistent thing that I want you to keep in mind in these situations. When you're going on offense with a perceived weakness like a date gap, I want you to turn that weakness into a strength. What did you do during that date gap in employment that made you a better hire? You're always selling yourself. That's that strategic thing we talked about in the last video. Everything is a sales job. So you're selling yourself, and it's all of you, right? So yes, I worked at this awesome job for the last year. And then for the year before that, it's not much of a sales job. Whereas if I say for the last year I worked for Alteryx, and for the year before that I was between jobs, here's what was happening. Family member took ill, they had some sort of medical emergency. I volunteered to leave the workforce because our financial situation was secure. Went and took care of said family member. During that time, I also earned my Google Cloud Platform certification, a Tableau certification. I did these 3 projects on my portfolio to try and stay relevant in the marketing space. Whatever it was, I finished my college degree. I went to this sales seminar, something to show that you weren't sitting on your couch drinking beer and watching football. Much as that sounds amazing right now. So turn the weakness into a strength. Go on offense. In the Marine Corps, we used to call it turning the map around. And what that meant was we were going to look at the map the way the enemy saw it. Now, hopefully you don't have enemies in the job space. Everybody's a potential friend. Adopt that mindset as well. So, but you're looking at yourself objectively. Kind of helps sometimes if you've got somebody else to help you with that. You're looking at yourself objectively. You're looking at yourself and you're saying, what are my weaknesses? Or what are this person's weaknesses if you're dealing with yourself as a hypothetical other person that you're looking to hire? What are my weaknesses? If I'm going to poke holes in this resume, in this story, in this narrative, what are the holes there? What do I have questions about? If you have questions about it, an interviewer is likely to have questions about it. Thing number 1 is date gaps. Get out there in front of those date gaps. My recommended course of action is, at least on the resume, you write something in there. You write that up as if it was a job. Now, obviously, it's not a company, unless you got your own LLC. That can get a little dicey. I have mine, but you're going to write that up as if it was a job. What did you do? What were your accomplishments? To include the accomplishments in, hey, I raised 3 kids and got them off to school every day. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, but that can be quite effective if you're doing stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad stuff or something like that, something dealing with family. Hey, my first cousin and I successfully beat cancer. Again, a little tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of graveyard humor, but I think that can go a long way, and it humanizes you and makes it obvious that you weren't just fired and sitting around doing nothing. So directly address date gaps, but more kind of wave top level, directly address your perceived weaknesses. Along those same lines, perceived weaknesses. Now, I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression. A date gap is not a weakness. It is a perceived weakness. It is something that, if left to their own devices, a hiring manager could hold against you. You don't want that. A career pivot can also be a perceived weakness. So point number 3 is turn your career pivot into a strength. Here's what I see with people that pivot careers, and I've been there, and kind of multiple times. And so I know what you're thinking. I was going to say performance syndrome, but you've got imposter syndrome. There we go. Imposter syndrome. That hits career pivoters worse than anybody else. Why? Because all you know is what you knew, and you know that it's not what you need to know. What I will say is most career pivoters that I've met have worked overtime to address their skill gap or even a perceived skill gap. So they have these skill stacks and these certification stacks that are just jaw-dropping. But what do they lead with? What's the first thing out of their mouth? Well, all I did. They apologize for the career they had before. Don't do that. Why would you apologize for the choices that you made years ago? Own that. If you came from being a school teacher, that has merit. Obviously, it has merit. My mother, 25 years, retired school teacher. If you came from some other career, like the military, where you distinguished yourself and did good things, be proud of that. Not only be proud of that, but be aware of the special, unique perspective that gives you on whatever career you're going into now. It may not be a direct technical skill translation, and that's where people get hung up. I was in the Marine Corps. I was shooting artillery. I was using esoteric and unique Marine-specific, artillery-specific computer systems. They don't use the advanced field artillery tactical data systems in data analytics, sad to say. But I have transferable skills. Those skills are not a certification. Those skills are not a technical platform that is used in data analytics. But they are high-level strategic and conceptual skills. I know how to take down a problem. If you have years of experience in analyzing an enemy position and then saying, I have a weapons solution to attack this enemy position, or I have a strategic or operational way that my fire support can augment the ground maneuver element, that is a transferable skill. Be proud of that. Be real about it. Don't sell it as if you're a shoo-in for the new job. That's the other mistake people make going the other way. So don't be underconfident. Don't have imposter syndrome. You've got good skills. Build the technical things you need, and then be matter of fact about the overlap between the two. But also don't act like you've got it made because, oh, brother, I was a military veterans. A lot of us tend to do this. Oh, I'm a project manager. I'm a product manager. I'm a blah, blah. Nah. Okay. So be realistic on one hand, but don't undersell yourself. You have skills. If you've worked in a professional environment, you are doing something other than taking out the trash and making coffee, you've got some skills to bring to bear. Somehow, some way. And that ties back to that sell job. You've got to sell your experience. What did you do for 5 or 10 or 15 years that you're now doing something different? And how can that help you? What unique perspective do you have? My school teachers out there, what unique perspective do you have about organizational leadership and convincing some goofball to do his homework like teachers had to do to me once upon a time where they didn't really want to do what you wanted them to do? That has relevance. That has value. Don't undersell it. So, point number 3, turn your career pivot into a strength. Make sure that you're representing the experience that you have in a positive light as a benefit to your new career, because it almost always is. So look at it objectively. Get some career expert to take a look at your experience and tell you what is and isn't relevant. Don't make assumptions on your own that, hey, it's all worthless. Let's throw out the baby with the bathwater. Don't do that. Number 4, this is going to be a toughie for some people. I talk to way too many people when they say it's a tough job market. Tough job market. That's the little sop everybody gives themselves. It's an excuse. It's a way out. It's a way of excusing failure and allowing you to reinforce a failing strategy over and over. It's a tough job market. It's not my fault. I'm not doing anything wrong. My application strategy is amazing. My resume is perfect. My skill set is godly. It's a tough job market. Okay. Maybe it is and maybe it isn't. It's a different job market, that's for sure. But the data industry and various industries with the technology that's coming in, they're all evolving. All industries are evolving with the use of AI. What's not happening is there's not thousands of people out there getting fired because of AI. That's the assumption. Absolutely not happening. But topic for another time. Here's what I want you to do. Point number 4. You're going to go on offense with your application strategy. However, anybody that's a sports fan, sporting events are divvied up into segments, right? So whatever you like. Football game has 2 halves, 4 quarters. And you have a little break in between. So first and second quarter, you got a couple of minutes. Halftime, you've got 15 minutes or a half hour, depending on the level. That's enough time to revise your strategy. So you come out in the first half, like Alabama did yesterday, and you're getting the break speed off of you, and you go in at halftime and you say, all right, guys, new strategy. All that pregame stuff, everything we worked on all week, we're throwing it out. It's not working. We're doing this different thing. And you got half an hour or 15 minutes to sort it out. So there's a limit to what you can do. However, teams do pivot. They do re-strategize during those breaks. And they come out and suddenly they look like a different team in the second half. Now, it didn't work for Alabama yesterday. I'm thankful for that. Bama fans, if you want to turn off the video now, can't blame you. You probably turned it off as soon as you saw the outfit. But what I want you to do is apply a specific application strategy for a finite amount of time. Decide before you go in. Have an idea of how long you want to apply your application strategy. Department of Redundancy department there. Apply your application strategy. So point number 4, we're going to apply a job application strategy for a finite amount of time, a specific strategy. How much time are you going to spend per day on job applications? How many applications per day, per week, per month are you going to submit? Is your strategy to apply on business websites or on job sites like LinkedIn and Indeed? Is your strategy to tailor applications or make one good general application and easy apply to however many jobs you find? Or are you taking a hybrid approach? That's what I recommend. This isn't a video about the job application strategy. We can definitely do another one on that. However, whatever it is you pick, I want you to codify it. I want you to write it down. I want you to figure out what it is. And I want you to give yourself a finite amount of time to apply it. And then I want you to reassess. So that's like coming in at halftime and you're down 14-3 and it's time for a new plan. Or you're coming in at halftime and you're up 17-0 and you say, I'm going to keep doing what's working. Or maybe you fine tune a couple of things. Do some A/B testing. Compare the results of strategy A to strategy B. But give yourself a finite amount of time. What I see far too often is people that are just lather, rinse, repeat. It's just reinforced failure, as we used to call it in the military. So their strategy's failing. They're easy applying 1,000 times a month. They're getting 0 interviews, and their plan for next month is to do it all over again. It's a tough job market. See how that becomes an easy excuse? It becomes the reason why you don't have to do the hard work of reassessing your strategy and changing. And reassessing your strategy takes humility. It takes thought. It takes insight. You got to work on it. So your job application strategy, codify it, figure out what it looks like, stick to it every day, apply some discipline, but do it for a finite amount of time and then reassess. If you're not getting 4% of your job applications turning into screening calls or interviews, time to reassess. Improve your resume. Improve your LinkedIn profile. Build a better network. Get some more connections. Get better connections. Okay, back to that. All right, so point number 4 to sum up. I want you to implement a specific application strategy, an aggressive and overt and forward-leaning application strategy for a finite amount of time. And at the end of that amount of time, you need to reassess. Just like any aggressive strategy, you got to constantly reassess, fine tune, figure out what's wrong with it, make it better. Okay. Otherwise, are you really someone that somebody wants to hire? If a business says, hey, I'm going to give this person marching orders and they're going to carry them out to the best of their abilities like a good soldier, and they're just going to keep doing it whether it's working or not until I tell them to stop, that's not a person that most businesses want to hire. So think about that. The last point, fifth and final point, my wife is going to be beating down the door telling me it's time to leave here in a second, is I want you to create optimistic content about your job search. I want you to document what you're doing in some way. Now, am I trying to make you a LinkedIn influencer like me? Am I trying to make you adopt TikTok or Facebook Meta or no? Document it however you like, but it is important that you document it in public. That can be a project portfolio. It can be a blog. You can get tons of different free platforms. None of this costs any money. LinkedIn's free. Facebook Meta's free. All these things. Twitter, free. You don't have to pay for anything. Getting your thoughts out and writing is free. But this is an aggressive mindset. Why? Because when you put your thoughts out in public, you are opening yourself up for ridicule. Someone's going to make fun of my hat. Someone, go ahead and make fun of the hairline. I know it's going back. What do you think the hat's on? I'm overdue for a haircut anyway. Someone's going to make fun of my teeth. Yeah, got big gaps in there. They're kind of yellowish. I'm 48. Deal with it. All right? Someone's going to hate on my shirt. Tell me they're an Oregon fan and they beat us. I got it. When you put yourself out there, you open yourself up for ridicule, but you also open yourself up for greatness. The likely results is probably going to be somewhere in between the two. Probably nobody's going to just totally crap on you, but probably also you're not going to become an internet hero. Most of us are somewhere in the middle. But the importance for you is in the bravery that it takes to put things out there and in the process that will help you in getting your thoughts out, in self-editing, in self-reflection, in thinking about your job search, and that will create dividends in all these other steps. If you start writing about your application strategy, it's going to be easier for you to realize, holy crap, this ain't working, and I need to fix it. The more you force yourself to face it and be realistic about it, the more likely you are to realize what's wrong with it and fix it. Your networking strategy. Keep track of that. Publish results. Yesterday, I reached out to 10 people and only 2 of them responded to me. It doesn't sound like a very good ratio. Well, why isn't that? You're going to be forced to self-assess all of these steps that you're doing. I revised my resume again today. Today, I sent it off 100 times and I got 3 callbacks. Obviously, this resume is more effective than the one I had yesterday. It's going to pay dividends for you. It requires bravery to put yourself out there. It forces you to, will encourage you to engage with other people. If you're out there blogging, you're going to talk to other bloggers. If you're podcasting, you're going to talk to other podcasters. It's just natural. You seek community in these things. If you're out there on LinkedIn putting content out, you're going to talk to other content creators. They're going to seek you out and vice versa. So in a way, that reinforces that networking effort. It reinforces all of the creation efforts as far as writing your resume, as far as tuning up your resume, as far as improving your interview style. Any practice you have telling your story is practicing getting through a job search. Because what is a job search? You're out there telling your story to someone in the hopes that they'll hire you. You send them your resume, that's your story in written form. You go in an interview, that's your story in verbal and interpersonal form. You're talking directly to a person or several persons. So creating content, getting your narrative out there, learning how to tell your story has tremendous value. And it is an aggressive and forward-leaning strategy. So my friends, let me sum up real quick as I'm reading my notes here. 5 things where you can be more aggressive in your job search strategy or in your employment strategy. Number 1, I want you to initiate connections, strategic connections. Connections are going to move you forward. I want you to initiate them with personal messages. Number 2, I want you to directly address date gaps in your resume, both in written form and be able to answer those questions in an interview about what you did and how it makes you a better employee. Number 3, I want you to turn your career pivot or your professional history into a strength. If you were a waitress for 10 years, what did that teach you that will make you a better project manager? I guarantee you, waitresses have a dozen skills that translate directly to people management. I've known enough waiters and waitresses to know that, okay? So turn your career pivot into a strength. Those skills that you have, know what they are and how they strengthen you and make you a better hire. Number 4, you're going to implement a specific application strategy for a finite amount of time. And number 5, create optimistic content about your job search. You implement those 5 things, I guarantee you're going to be successful. Semper Fidelis, and I'll talk to you later.